Our next presenter is Aleta. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce some of the images of Aleta's design from the show. And Aleta, we will start with these images that I'm going to get to. Sorry about this. I'm going to cycle through Martha's images. Aleta's piece, I'm forgetting the name of the piece, so you're going to have to help me with that, Aleta. I'm very sorry. This is a beautiful, crafted, inspired design, inspired by the sunset in a specific region, looking at the sunset from the beach, and the construction and the creativity in this design is so thrilling. For me, when I'm looking at it and studying it, I honestly couldn't stop taking photos up close, enjoying all of the textures that we see, and the form, the structure, the stitching, this careful combination of these materials, and then the working of the color, the variety and the flow, transition, all the way down to this really awesome skirt finish with some more of this puffy white, wonderful fabric. We are enjoying this piece so much, and I'm excited to hear Aleta talk about it tonight because I've been looking forward to hearing more about all of these different steps involved with this design. So at this point, Aleta, I'm going to go ahead to make you the presenter, and I know you have something to share with us from your screen.
Yes, I do. So, so I get this sharing thing going. Yes, my name is Aleta Deyo. I am a costume designer and a professor of fashion design at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, right across the street from Adrian's studio. This whole process started out as a teaching tool. You know, with my students, I like to kind of do some of the things alongside them, you know, kind of remember what some of the sticking points are while they're going through their design process. And this year in particular, with the potential of doing more online learning in the fall, we didn't know what our modalities were going to be when we were preparing over the summer. So I prepared for both full online, face-to-face, half and half. So a lot of this material that I put together was for the eventuality of an online class, which didn't happen because we actually taught face-to-face in the School of the College of Visual and Performing Arts. So my process for the students and for myself, it just started with, I picked a topic. I spent the summer on the vineyard mostly, and just photographs of beach. You know, a lot of things were closed, but me and the kids we went kayaking, we went swimming. I think we hit every beach we could. And so I took all of that information, the photographs, the pieces that I picked up, you know, the pockets full of rocks and sea glass and shells, and I brought them together in a little PowerPoint for the students to talk about primary research, you know, research that comes from you know, your inspiration, not necessarily just something that comes from outside. Students often look towards, you know, like something in pop culture, and they try to bring it to them. And it's really important for them to learn how to kind of bring something from them and then reference the pop. So I did that. Then I showed them research of, you know, reaching out towards art history and shells and sunsets and how other people have kind of played with these common items that I'm looking at. And then different ways fashion has explored some of these things, you know, the ombre that was so huge a couple years back. Shapes like Princess Di's big puffy shoulder just kept reminding me of a scallop shell. The lantern sleeve, which is fairly popular right now, the the vintage coats and the rounded shapes that they used to have. They all just kind of were bringing me some inspiration. Different ways of using textile to produce different looks, pleating and ruching, applications and chenille. And then, I'd show the kids how you play. They're not kids, the students, how you play with, juxtaposition, taking your research and bringing it up against something, looking for images and other things in fashion that are kind of echoing some of your research. Gathering lots of information is always a good thing. And we do a collage project where I make them take their research and go in and just do pages and pages in their notebooks of just, mixing things up a little, taking something and turning it into something else. And this is where my ideas sort of started to come together, what I was thinking of doing. I really liked the colors, and I was starting to play with this heat resist, creating bubbles and these kind of lantern dress, lantern sleeve things. These are just some more ideas that came from my research that didn't really go exactly where I went, but still part of the story. And then this is what I presented to Adrian. And the sunset, I went through my photos when I was compiling stuff for these PowerPoints for my students. And we go back to Chilmark every summer. It's usually the end of summer. We kind of do this, barbecue and sunset. And this, I have this image every year for like 10 years. It's kind of amazing. The sunsets there are just remarkable. So I kind of wanted to play with that after seeing how many times I'd photographed it. And I thought about felting. These aren't my works. These are just examples of felting. And I wanted to maybe do Nuno felting or just needle felting, or, I was just really inspired by wool. But I didn't feel like I was going to get this transparency or this lightness that I find in this image and across all the images that I had of these sunsets. So I then started playing with different things. This is actually a method one of my students was working on this semester. So we were all kind of give and take in the studio. He was taking watercolor and painting on it's like a polyester organza, trying to get kind of a painted feel. He didn't use it, but Miles was it was kind of a spark for me. So he let me borrow his pictures. Then I started playing around with how I could paint in this sunset, I don't know, this kind of impression. And I painted on some organza, and it was just a little too light. And I wasn't sure that's exactly where I was going to go, but I did like the pattern that I had developed. So I stuck with the shape and I moved on, and I started playing with layers, different colors. These are all scraps that the students had abandoned in the studio. And we have donations that come in all the time. So I really kind of wanted to use what we had and figure this out. And I really felt like I was kind of getting somewhere here. And then these are some other things that I had done in the studio, wrapping marbles and elastics and heat setting it. You get this really cool bubbly thing, and it not necessarily a cloud, but maybe it's a cloud. But there was also that sea foam that would always kind of roll up on the rocks in Chilmark. So I was playing around with that. Chenilling really started to kind of open up more options. I really liked the way the light kind of went through the different layers. It gave me more layers and kind of more ideas to play with. So I started laying out strips and strips of different types of shears. It was really hard to find orange shear. It must just not be in season. So I used some orange silk that we had, and I just started layering it and pinning it down. And you can see in the picture like the different layers underneath. And then I sewed it down in kind of 2 inches apart in these channels. And it was kind of, it's not necessarily a rainbow, but it has a, kind of, my kid, the first thing my 10-year-old said was, "Oh, mommy, it's a rainbow." there's this kind of blueness in the middle of most of these where the water and the sky kind of hit, and I wanted to kind of keep that band. So I was trying to figure out where things would go here. And then I had to cut it out. There's my pattern, and trying to line it up so that roughly the yellows that went across the yellow to the, from the body to the sleeve. It got a little more complicated at the sleeve cap because they just never really line up well. But then after I laid it all out and I sewed it together, I started playing with the chenilling. And here you can see I frayed different layers. I cut some away more than others. I let the, you know, some I wanted the yellow to show more. And when the pink was over the yellow, it was, you know, it was a different color. This color that I couldn't find in a store. It was this kind of peachy pink. So the chenilling also helped kind of bring more of those kind of impossible colors to the foreground. And then here's a picture of the bubbly neck piece, which just kind of, I undid the marbles and that's what happened. That's how it kind of stayed, and I didn't really touch it. I really liked its kind of weird asymmetrical loft that it has. And that white piece is a whole dress underneath. It's heat set in like a broomstick along the body, and then the neck and the base are marbled so they have more volume. And there is a third piece that would go underneath this, but with the way we were showing it, I didn't present it, but it's more color that goes underneath the sheer. So there's kind of multiple layers of color in this. So, you know, that's kind of my finished product. You know, I was really working hard to get that blue up in the shoulders. It's just such a specific blue when the sky reaches that point. And then the way the colors reflect in the water, it's not really reflecting exactly the same colors. There's this darkness to it. And I didn't chenille the bottom half because I really loved what was happening with the layers, the way the pink and the purples and the blues were all just kind of creating this kind of softness. It reminded me more of the water, whereas the chenilling kind of had this movement more like the sky. So, you know, my inspiration and my original sketch and my final piece kind of all came together. And yeah, it was really exciting. As a costume designer, I'm always working with someone towards something. You have a script and you have concepts, and even with bridal, you're working with a bride. This was really nice to kind of, you know, especially stepping away from the screen this semester to, you know, kind of just start from beginning to end. And it did start out as a teaching tool, but then I took it and kind of went further. And, you know, my students, some of them had some advice and some thoughts. And I did reach out to some other people for critique. I don't like working in a vacuum. Maybe that's because I am a costume designer and you're always getting feedback and you're always working towards a goal. But I really enjoyed doing this, and I feel like I'm probably going to do more on this topic. I had so many ideas, I couldn't really stop. So there may be more, Adrienne.
Aleta, I love the description, and what I like about the description is that there may be more. And envisioning the third piece, the undergarment that you're introducing to us now, we can imagine it. And by seeing your illustration, we can also, you know, imagine what that beautiful white sheer undergarment looks like. The drama of wearing this piece would be just fantastic. So my questions have already been answered. I was interested to know about this white fluffy cloud or this white sea foam structure, wondering if it was heat set, and you confirmed the marble heat set, you know, forming of this fabric. And then you were also saying that the fabric that goes on the body between the two formed areas is also formed to the body using heat as well, right? So the heat is sort of sucking it in to be formed to the body.
Yeah. It has like
Yeah,
a body
it's
con. I wish it was hard when I unbuttoned it and it was on the mannequin. It didn't show well. It just kind of seemed all like it really needs a person. And the mannequin has like a funny little contrapposto to her hips. So I chose to put the buttons on the inside and just kind of close it up. But yeah, it's there's like a pieced lycra tank top dress that goes underneath the sheer bodycon kind of, it's kind of like a chemise, I guess. And then the jacket would go over it, but it was all a little
I'm
too
gonna
much.
I'm gonna open it up to other questions. But thank you so much for that description and also sharing with us that this is just the beginning of some new other creations. This one in particular, as you're saying, you know, on a still mannequin, it has its own life and its own presentation. But on a model, you know, somebody wearing this and having movement also be part of the expression of this piece. I personally am very much looking forward to seeing that. So we'll make sure to add those components in, you know, to this presentation later on as an additional chapter to the video. At this point, I'll open it up to anybody who has any questions for Aleta.
Aleta, this is Martha. When you heat set, how do you do all that volume at one time? You put it in.
We have one of those giant jet steam kind of things at school. So
Okay.
I did that. And I took a glass bottle and I twisted it around to get it so that I could make it small enough to fit inside. And then I just put it on the little tray inside it and it just
Gotcha.
heated it up.
Cool, thanks.
It was actually a technique I was using to show a student. I was showing a student this technique because she was trying to create texture in a garment. And after I did it, you know, I showed her a whole bunch of different heat set items, and then I was like, "Oh, I really like this." It's all together, me and my senior studio.
Great.
I'm gonna go ahead and see if anybody else has any more questions.
Hi,
Thank you, Aleta. Oh, sorry.
It's not so much a question. I just wanted to chime in here and say that to see the story behind it really enlivens this piece even more, to know it's based on a sunset, and yeah, it'd be fun to see it move. Really fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aleta. We're going to move to our next presenter, who is Amber. And Aleta, that was this wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.